1. George Lucas only got $775. You'd think a director of a legendary film like American Graffiti would be rolling in cash, right? But when George Lucas made this movie, he was paid just $775. That's not a typo. Lucas, who would later become one of Hollywood's most powerful filmmakers, took home less than $1,000 for writing and directing this gem. At the time, he was still relatively unknown and fresh out of film school. Thankfully, Lucas negotiated a deal for a share in the film's profits, and when the movie exploded at the box office, it changed his life and his bank account forever. 2. It was shot in just 28 days. American Graffiti was shot in an unbelievably short amount of time, just 28 days, and almost all of it was filmed at night. George Lucas had to work fast with a limited budget, which meant actors had only 1 or 2 takes per scene. Every night, the cast and crew scrambled to set up shots before the sun came up. This tight schedule created massive pressure, but it also added a sense of urgency and raw energy to the film. It's hard to believe a movie this impactful was made in under a month, but Lucas pulled it off. 3. Real cars, real crashes. The vintage cars in American Graffiti weren't just for show. They were real hot rods, owned and driven by real car enthusiasts. Many of these classic vehicles were borrowed from locals in Petaluma, California, where the film was shot. The crashes and street races, completely real too. No fancy CGI or digital effects, just raw engines, burnt rubber, and calculated stunts. One particular crash scene involved a car being flipped and set on fire, and it was done practically, not in post. That authenticity made every race and roar of the engine feel alive. It wasn't movie magic, it was real adrenaline. 4. Harrison Ford refused to cut his hair. When Harrison Ford was cast as Bob Falfa, the studio told him he had to cut his hair to fit the 1960s look. But Ford refused. He was already working part-time as a carpenter and didn't want to mess with his hairstyle in case he needed other gigs. George Lucas, rather than recasting him, found a creative fix. He made Ford wear a cowboy hat in almost every scene. The hat became an unplanned but iconic part of Ford's look. Ironically, that little act of defiance helped him stand out, and it wouldn't be long before Star Wars came calling. 5. Ron Howard almost said no. Before playing the clean-cut Steve Bolender, Ron Howard almost turned down American Graffiti. Known for his role as Richie Cunningham in Happy Days, Howard didn't want to be typecast in another teen drama. He had dreams of becoming a director and wasn't sure another teen drama would help. But George Lucas personally reached out and convinced him this wasn't just another coming-of-age film, it was something special. Howard agreed, and the role became a turning point. Not only did it boost his acting career, but it also gave him inspiration and confidence to pursue directing full-time. 6. The film was almost called Another Quiet Night. Before George Lucas settled on the title American Graffiti, he considered other names like Another Quiet Night and Rock Around the Block. The studio didn't even like the final title at first. Executives thought American Graffiti sounded too vague and weird, but Lucas wanted something that captured the essence of youth expression, rebellion, and culture. Graffiti symbolized the raw energy of teens writing their identity across society. The odd title ended up being perfect, standing out just enough to get people curious, and it eventually became synonymous with one of the greatest coming-of-age films ever made. 7. No studio wanted it. Believe it or not, every major studio rejected the script for American Graffiti at first. They thought a low-budget film about teens driving around and listening to old music wouldn't appeal to audiences. Even Universal Pictures only agreed to finance it because of George Lucas's friendship with Francis Coppola, who had just directed The Godfather. Lucas was forced to work with a tiny budget and little support. But once the film hit theaters, it became a surprise blockbuster, grossing over $140 million on a $777,000 budget. The studios were dead wrong, and Lucas got the last laugh. 8. Based on Lucas's own life. American Graffiti isn't just a movie. It's a personal love letter to George Lucas's teenage years in Modesto, California. As a teen, George Lucas was obsessed with car culture, cruising, and drag racing. The film's locations, storylines, and even characters are based on people Lucas knew in real life. Kurt, played by Richard Dreyfuss, was modeled after Lucas himself, a thoughtful guy torn between staying in his hometown or chasing a bigger future. Lucas's authenticity shines through every scene. It's what gives the movie heart and relatability, turning a simple night out into something emotionally unforgettable. 9. Over 40 hit songs in the film. One of the reasons American Graffiti feels so nostalgic is because of its killer soundtrack. It features over 40 hit songs from the late 50s and early 1960s, including tunes by Buddy Holly, the Beach Boys, and Chuck Berry. Lucas insisted on using original tracks, not covers. That decision was expensive. Music licensing cost around $90,000, more than 10% of the total budget. But it was worth every penny. The music wasn't just background, it told the story, set the mood, and defined the era. The soundtrack later sold millions and inspired a generation of filmmakers to treat music as storytelling. 10. It launched multiple careers. American Graffiti wasn't just a hit movie, it was a launch pad for Hollywood legends. The cast included a young Harrison Ford, who would later become Han Solo and Indiana Jones, Richard Dreyfuss, who went on to win an Oscar, Ron Howard, who transitioned into a celebrated director, and Cindy Williams, who became a sitcom star in Laverne and Shirley. At the time, most of these actors were unknowns or just getting started. George Lucas's decision to cast fresh faces gave the film its youthful, authentic vibe, and those choices helped define the next generation of Hollywood stars. 11. George Lucas was hospitalized. The pressure of making American Graffiti nearly broke George Lucas. Between the tight budget, sleepless nights, and non-stop filming, his health took a hit. During production, he started experiencing chest pains and had to be hospitalized for exhaustion. Lucas was only in his late 20s at the time, but was working like a veteran director under immense stress. Doctors warned him to slow down or risk more serious consequences. Luckily, he recovered quickly, but this wouldn't be the last time Lucas's health would suffer due to filmmaking. Still, he never let the pressure kill his passion for storytelling. 12. It was almost a TV movie. At one point, American Graffiti came dangerously close to being dumped as a made-for-TV movie. After the film was completed, Universal didn't know what to do with it. Executives felt it lacked excitement, had no major stars, and wouldn't sell. They considered skipping a theatrical release altogether and airing it on late-night television. But when Francis Ford Coppola saw the final cut, he begged the studio to give it a chance in theaters. His influence helped save the film, and it went on to become a cultural phenomenon. One small decision changed Hollywood history. 13. Set in 1962, but feels like the 50s. Although American Graffiti is set in 1962, many viewers think it's a 50s movie. Why? Because of the cars, fashion, music, and overall vibe. The film captures the tail end of America's 1950s innocence, just before the Vietnam War, the counterculture movement, and major political shifts. George Lucas wanted to freeze that exact moment in time, when life felt simpler and dreams seemed bigger. So while technically it's a film about the early 60s, its heart beats with 1950s nostalgia. It bridges two eras, showing a world right before everything started to change. 14. Ford's voice was dubbed. Harrison Ford's performance in American Graffiti is unforgettable, but did you know his voice was dubbed in some early versions of the film? The audio captured during his scenes was often unusable due to engine noise and poor conditions on set. In post-production, Ford wasn't always available to re-record his lines, so another actor dubbed over him. Fans who watched the original releases noticed his voice sounded slightly off in certain scenes. It's a strange detail that went mostly unnoticed, but it shows how much the filmmakers had to improvise and patch things together behind the scenes. And honestly, you'd never notice on screen. 15. It cost only $777,000 to make. In an industry dominated by multi-million-dollar productions, American Graffiti was made for just $777,000. That's pocket change by Hollywood standards, even in 1973. George Lucas stretched every dollar, filming quickly, using natural lighting, and even hiring non-union crew members. Cast and crew worked long hours for low pay, believing in the project's heart and vision. The low budget also forced Lucas to be more creative with camera angles and storytelling. Despite its tiny cost, the film grossed over $140 million worldwide and became one of the most profitable films ever made. It proved that big dreams don't need big money. 16. The ending was controversial. The film ends with an unexpected twist. Text on the screen reveals what happened to each main character. While most audiences expected a happy wrap-up, Lucas delivered bittersweet outcomes. One character dies in a car crash, another disappears in Vietnam, and another becomes an insurance agent, far from their youthful dreams. Some viewers and even studio execs felt this was too depressing for a feel-good teen movie. But Lucas defended the decision, saying it grounded the film in reality. That bold choice made the film feel more meaningful, showing how fast life can change after one unforgettable night. 17. Richard Dreyfuss was afraid of flying. Richard Dreyfuss, who played Kurt, had to film a scene involving a small airplane. What fans didn't know was that Dreyfuss had a deep fear of flying. The scene where he rides in a plane with the mysterious Wolfman Jack took real courage. Though he looked calm on screen, behind the scenes he was sweating bullets. The crew even had to reassure him multiple times before takeoff. Dreyfuss pushed through for the role, and ironically, that moment added more realism to his nervous, uncertain character, someone literally and emotionally deciding whether to leave his hometown behind. 18. Suzanne Summers had only one line. Before she became a TV icon on Three's Company, Suzanne Summers played the stunning, mysterious blonde in The White Thunderbird. She had exactly one line in the whole movie: "I love you." That's it. But her brief appearance made a big impact. Her beauty and mystery haunted Kurt throughout the film, representing the dream he couldn't quite reach. That single line helped launch her career. What's even crazier, she was uncredited in earlier versions of the film. It's a reminder that even the smallest roles can become iconic if they capture the audience's imagination just right. 19. Cars had to be pushed. Due to sound issues, the production team had to get creative with the cars on set. The engines were too loud and interfered with the dialogue recordings. So, to avoid ruining audio, crew members would physically push the cars into place before filming started. Only once the camera was rolling would they fire up the engines. This silent prep work required incredible coordination, especially on night shoots. It was just one of the many low-budget tricks George Lucas and his team used to make the film look polished on a shoestring budget. And honestly, you'd never notice on screen. 20. Spielberg was impressed. Before American Graffiti hit theaters, Spielberg saw a private screening. At the time, he was just an up-and-coming filmmaker, but he immediately knew the film was special. Spielberg reportedly told George Lucas, "You're going to change Hollywood with this movie." He was right. American Graffiti influenced an entire generation of filmmakers and helped launch the modern blockbuster era. It showed studios that small, personal stories could connect with massive audiences. Spielberg and Lucas would later become close collaborators, teaming up for the Indiana Jones franchise, but it all began with a night of cruising, burgers, and rock and roll.